Welcome to today's session. Thank you for joining the Business China and Lianhe Zaobao for this flagship event, the 2025 Inside China Series, Decoding China's two sessions. My name is Teresa from Business China. Thank you so much for joining us in the rain today. And today's topic is the China's response to Trump 2.0. We aim to provide a deeper insight into the evolving dynamics between Singapore, China, and the world. Without further ado, let's give a warm round of applause to welcome Mr. Ho Chi-hing, the CEO of Business China, to deliver his welcome speech. Please welcome Mr. Ho. Distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, welcome to Decoding China's Two Sessions 2025. This is a flagship event co-hosted by Business China and Lianhe Zaobao. Every year, China's two sessions set the stage for the new policies and initiatives. So this timely forum will bring together experts, scholars, and business leaders to share insights from different perspectives. And over the years, this event has received very warm welcome from the public. Just last week, the two sessions has concluded. The government acknowledged that the economic challenge ahead will reaffirm the confidence in the country's long-term growth trajectory. It also has pledged a deeper opening up to the world. And one of the key takeaways was the strong commitment to the two unwaverings, supporting both the public and the private sectors, and policies to promote the private sector growth and safeguard the legal rights of private enterprises and entrepreneurs were emphasized, sending a positive signal to businesses and investors. At the same time, the government underscored the role of technological and industrial innovation in driving new productive forces. Efforts will be made to build platforms that seamlessly integrate innovation and industry, fostering a more dynamic and interconnected ecosystem. At Business China, we aim to enhance public understanding of China's latest development through high-quality bilingual business dialogues. We look forward to your continued support in the years ahead. Finally, I would like to extend my sincere thanks to our speakers for their thoughtful preparations in such a short time. And I wish Decoding China's Two Sessions 2025 event a great success. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ho. And please join me to welcome the first keynote speaker today, the Professor Mr. Tan Kong Yan, the Professor of Economics from NTU. Please welcome Professor Tan. Distinguished Ms. Ling and distinguished Mr. Ho from Business China, ladies and gentlemen. My topic today is Decoding China's Two Sessions 2025, China's response to Trump 2.0. And I will focus mostly on the topic of AI. But this is the speech outline of my speech. So first, I will focus on AI. The second topic is the new productive forces. And thirdly, leading the green economy. And fourthly, currently, the reshape of the global order, the potential of reshaping a global order. So I will use my analysis to try to outline my whole presentation. So first of all, DeepSeek is a game-changing innovation. It will reshape the economy and drive China's productivity in the long-term growth. So China is kind of like an aging marathon runner who is over-reliant on the sluggish real estate sector and the traditional manufacturing industries. However, with DeepSeek, it serves like a powerful adrenaline boost. China's economy is now revitalized and ready for a stronger comeback. So I will also mention the global adoption and the diffusion of technology are accelerating. And China is set to play a leading role in both the AI revolution and shifting geopolitical dynamics. Like I said, if we make the analogy saying China is like a marathon runner who has been racing for 40 years, but now it has suddenly stumbled and fallen, crying out in pain. We know that the collapse of the real estate sector and the low consumption rate in China. As a casual observer, one might assume that this marathon runner has suffered a heart attack, making recovery very difficult. Some media are reporting that. However, if you are analyzing as an expert, like a medical expert, as a rigorous researcher, you would conduct a thorough X-ray and conduct a thorough CT scan before concluding that this is a fatal heart attack, but it's merely just a temporary muscle spasm. So in that sense, we can see a recovery potential. So after a period of rest, the runner may gradually regain strength, and then first limping forward before slowly picking up pace and running again. If you look at the data in the past 3 years, that is the trend actually for the last 6 months. That's the positive, more a stable trend, that the economy is becoming more steady. I think with this productive effect of DeepSeek, it will increase the productivity growth in China. This is a powerful shot of adrenaline. And the DeepSeek's impact on productivity within the next 2 to 3 years will actually may impact China's economy faster. It will sprint even faster than ever before. So I can show you a few figures just to analyze its long-term impact. In the next 3 decades, I think it will have a very important impact on China-US relations. The first point I would like to emphasize on is AI, and that's also mentioned in Premier Li Qiang's government report document. You can have a look on your own because everyone is talking about AI and the AI plus initiatives and large-scale AI adoption, and to vigorously develop the new generation intelligent terminals and smart manufacturing equipment, including intelligent connected new EVs and so on. So also to build a internationally competitive digital industry clusters. You might also you are aware of these AI breakthroughs. Actually, like Mr. President Donald Trump has said, that this is a wake-up call. I'm sure many of you have seen this news on CCTV news that President Xi Jinping met with the prominent business leaders in China, and he shook hands with Jack Ma and with Ren Zhengfei from Huawei. So I actually met President Xi once, but I've mostly seen him on TV. You will see that when he was walking towards Liang Wenfeng, who is the founder of DeepSeek, he was so happy and he was smiling, so like he had a big smile on his face. I've never seen him so happy. So I think this is also a very is a big encouragement from the leadership to the businesses. So to dive into DeepSeek, because we have limited time, we'll just mention a few points. DeepSeek is a game changer for the China's economy. It will reshape the economy, driving a new wave of productive growth, whether it's in the industrial level or the national service level or the local government level. It will drive productivity growth. Like I said, China used to be like an aging marathon runner, but now with DeepSeek as this adrenaline boost, it can be more revitalized, ready to surge ahead. With the government structure in China, because the government plays such a strong role, DeepSeek will spread quickly and have a widespread impact. It will impact all the industries and the entire economy. So if you analyze the world history in the past 150 years, you will realize a rapid technology development, for example, in the invention of electricity and mobile phones and internet. So to grow the productivity, it depends on how widely these technologies are being used and how the society, the industries are using it. So I think China's advantage is they have this institutional strength, and the policy support will also position China to lead AI adoption and maximize its economic impact.
So there are strengths and weaknesses for China as well. So when we look at the strength, you can see that at the most critical timing, China is a very powerful government, and it has a very strategic vision in the, for example, in the technology competition. And because it's so centralized, it can pave a very long-term planning strategy. So this is like a 20-year long Dragon Ball racing. And just take the EV as example. 20 years ago, nobody was talking about it. But in the last 20 years, because of all the subsidies provided by the Chinese government, you can see how rapidly this industry has grown. And not to mention other developments such as the batteries or the solar and wind energy development. So all this, you can see that when the government is taking a strong lead, how much achievement they can attain in such a short time. Also, it also applies to China's telecom. And this is not to mention, I'm sure most of you know that this is how a lot of wealth was gathered and the technology was strengthened, and it can even create another 150 years of wealth. So this, we can see that nowadays the economic development and wealth creation are mainly relying on technology innovation. So if you look at this chart, you can see that whether it's telephone, telecom, the electricity or even the computation, internet, all are giving us the same signal of how much technologies and innovations can drive the economy development. So I would say that in the next 20, 30 years, AI will be the key indicator to push the economic growing forward. And even we can see that from 2050 until 2050, how much AI can push the economy to grow to that level. So the next 30 years, we can say that not only it doesn't mean that you're a strong country if you have good military or very strong weapons. But if you are able to grasp economy power, meaning that you're able to get the gist of AI technology, you are able to take the lead in the world. And in the US, you can see that a lot of technology has already proven that, and VRs has already been used in many aspects in the national development. Currently, the Microsoft's platform is already supporting the service, and also we can see that very quickly being applied in other aspects of national development. So, of course, it also involves some scams and some hacking problems I just like to give some example. In China, we can see that a lot of government services and government development, they are using AI, they are using DeepSeek. So give you one example, it's the Zhoushan port in Lianhe. This is a port, and they have already used the technology from DeepSeek to better manage their containers and their logistics and the time to turn around, so as to increase the efficiency of the throughput. And the second example is in the government's public services. Hangzhou municipal government now is using AI to improve its traffic light control, and also to better manage and utilize people's resources, human resources. Another example can be seen with Foxconn. So Foxconn now use DeepSeek in their assembly line, in their production line, to do more high-level analysis from the system, so it can reduce the downtime and increase the efficiency of the assembly line. Another one is Jingdong. Everybody knows it's a big e-commerce platform. They use AI to estimate their inventory, forecast their inventory, and so that they can reduce wastage and reduce cost to better their service and efficiency. Another one is to be seen in the financial services, and that is on the insurance policies. For example, the banking insurance or other insurance policy, to use that to better simulate risks or potential risks, so that perhaps they can further prevent more scam cases to be done, so that in the next 150 and 100 years, we can see this trend to continuously developing. If we look at 1900, so we go back to 100 years. At that time, when we first had electricity, it took about 50 years to make it universal, to make people and the society to accept it, because at the time there were no other supporting factors for this whole technology to develop. But you can see after the smartphone or other computers related peripheral technology has taken place, it's like a roller coaster. The development speed is only getting faster and faster. And so not only just the technology, you can see the whole entire ecosystem is being developed very rapidly. So I give you some analysis of the future trend. So look at this red line. The red line shows America's, USA's GDP. Everybody knows that from IBM's mainframe to personal computer, this is a big shift, usage shift. Personal computer has become more and more universal. In the 1980s to the next 2-3 decades, we can see that there are more and more people using computer. And maybe a lot of economists say that, how come with so many computer development, we don't have better efficiency? So actually, you can see that there are some incubation period. Only until 1995, it becomes a blue line, meaning that the real effect, the real results prevailed. So you can see that usually it takes 10 to 15 minutes for the real effect to be shown. It's just like you take a shot. Maybe your body needs time to internalize the strength of the shot. So it doesn't show right away, but after a while, you will see the strength of it. And everybody knows that in the 1980s, Japan was #1, and Japan was not #1. Japan was trying very hard, but they couldn't compete with the USA. And even if with a lot of development on the internet, on the PC, they still couldn't get it done faster. Now America has Microsoft, as Google and Apple, but what does Japan have? Japan has not much breakthroughs. it still stayed in the past 20 years or in the 1980s with maybe just the Toyota or a few other car brands that are more famous or more renowned to the world. But China is not the same as Japan. China is leaping. It's on a leaping progress or leaping growth. So, for example, last year I went to China alone for 56 times. 56 times, and during that time, I considered the development in Shenzhen or in Hangzhou. So, if we say that the data economy takes about 15 years for the U.S. to really improve the efficiency or the productivity, I think you will see that happening with China, but it'll be even faster. Why? Because now we have even better equipment, peripheral equipment, such as the smartphones or other smart devices. It's not only just relying on PC, and we don't only just need to use the computer to the computation of those data. Now we even have AI. So I would say that in the next 3 to 5 years, China is going to achieve the efficiency that would take more than 20 years to achieve in the past. So let's try to meet 5 years later. Let's see to see if my prediction is correct or not. We can discuss by then. So now let's look at the future's pyramid and how this pyramid is going to be divided. Now the U.S. has really aggressively pushing protectionism, and I think our in the future, East Asia will be a big economy zone, and next 10 to 15 years, this pyramid is going to be better allocated with each country's strength. So, for example, China will be relying on its strength, and Singapore is good at, for example, high technology, advanced manufacturing, finances, or banking, and this will be relied heavily on by other countries in East Asia. And other SEA countries, maybe in the mid or lower layer of the pyramid, and they can complement. We can complement each other. If we think this model is correct, then in the next 10 to 20 years, I think Korea, Taiwan, Japan will have a difficult position to be placed in this pyramid, because, for example, Korea in the past, it was like Japan. It's heavily relying on heavy industry, for example, cars, or even shipment building. Those are the core industries. But it's proven that it can be replaced very quickly by other lower labor countries, and America has already not taken any more products from this type of product from Korea. So in the next 5 to 10 years, I think Taiwan, Japan, and Korea may face some difficulties. So this is the work report of Premier on my page 14. So I wouldn't touch more in details. Everybody knows there are a lot of new production, quantum technologies, biochemics, and some aerospace engineering development. And this is all showing the development of China in high-end technology and also its production. In the last 15 years, China did a lot of investment. Actually, a lot of investment were put in real estate and the manufacturing industry in the last 10 to 15 years. And if China keeps going on this path, it will become a low efficiency, low speed country. So that's why China knows quickly they need to shift its investment to high technology, to add value technology. They need to put their investment on a high efficiency technology. That's why they shift the investment from real estate to high technology industry. And here there is capital, of course, from the country the national and also private sectors capital, the capital funds, and also of course some private funds. And all this will be the main sources to help to elevate the capital markets efficiency. So I wouldn't touch more in that, but just to give you an idea that in the future, those new tech industries, AI, smart technologies, these will be the leading trend to strengthen some key technologies. And this is also being mentioned on the page 24 of the work report.
So in terms of the green economy and cut carbon emissions and reduce pollution, so all of these points that you can find in the government work report as well. So the transition into a green economy will have a very large impact because, in January 20th this year, when President Donald Trump took power again, he announced that U.S. will quit the Paris Agreement, and that has a profound impact because it is one of the largest powers, including Russia and China. So it will have a very enormous impact. And in Trump's administration, the many leaders are from the interest groups in the natural gas and the traditional industries. So that's why they really value the development of the traditional industry rather than the renewable industries. But that provided China a opportunity because they are developing heavily in renewable energies in terms of advancing in the manufacturing, in the technologies, wind and solar and new EVs and battery industries and so on. So they are taking this advantage and taking a research lead as well. So in terms of green economy and the energy investment, China will take more leading role in this aspect, and it will also reap the economic effect. This also provided China with a more strategic opportunity with the U.S. withdrawal from the Paris Agreement that presents China with a geopolitical advantage, allowing it to lead global climate action and its renewable energy sector, and also make its proactive stance more clear and strengthen its international influence, including the cooperation potential with the EU in terms of green economy and renewable energy. So just to touch briefly on the current global order, the geopolitical issues, the risks are many. So my estimation, my prediction is I think we can revisit that in the next 3 to 5 years. If I'm not wrong, please don't blame me. So for the United States, under Trump's leadership, the U.S. has pivoted towards more like an isolationism. It is pulling back from traditional alliances, and this is a shift to isolationism. It's pulling back its allies and international institutions. I think President Trump will focus on expanding influence over North America and South America, including Canada and Mexico and Greenland and the Middle East. So that's the global order that U.S. is trying to reshape. And for Russia, Putin seeks dominance in Eastern Europe and parts of the Central Africa. And his aim is to prevent Western Europe from posing a threat to Russia's security. And for China, Xi Jinping will prioritize in some parts of the world, so they can compromise in terms of Europe and South America, but they will prioritize South China Sea and ASEAN countries and solidifying China's regional leadership. So with this kind of arrangement, of course, no one will announce it publicly. They might tacitly adhere to this arrangement. Because they are such big powers, they might have to work around with each other. And Africa, it will be another negotiation battleground for the three powers. I don't think President Trump will compromise. He might try to work with Putin to fight against China, but that time have passed. It's too late. Maybe he would have succeeded 15 years ago. But I think China is too big. It's too strong now. You can't really completely cut it off. You just have to negotiate. You have to share the pie with China. So that's why when we're seeing business leaders like Liang Wenfeng from DeepSeek, it also gives China more leverages. So just an illustration. We cannot underestimate the development of technologies. And these researchers, they are leading the competition. If you look at the students from the bachelor who graduated from a bachelor degree, they usually study subjects from this STEM subjects. So they put a very strong focus on technological and research development. So if you look at the development team of these big tech companies in China, all of these team members are essentially Chinese. But if you compare that with the AI teams in America, it's actually quite different because a lot of Chinese are working in those companies as well in the US. So some of you might have seen this. I have an American friend who said, oh, the American team beat the Chinese team. However, if you look at the members of these the Math Olympics competitions, actually China lost to America. However, they represent the members of the American team. They are the American Chinese people. So it's the American Chinese who beat the Chinese Chinese. So that's a difference. And that shows that China spends a lot of time and effort and energy on developing its own research teams. So this is a picture of the Yalta Conference in the then Soviet Crimea. Winston Churchill and Franklin Roosevelt and the leader Joseph Stalin met to discuss the post-war restructuring of Europe. So that's everything I want to share with you today. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Tan. Due to the interest of the time, that will actually just invite the next guest speaker, Mr. Tommy Xie, the Managing Director of the Head of Asia Micro Research from OCBC. Please welcome Mr. Xie. Thank you very much. And please also prompt me on the time. I hope I won't go over the time. I'll have 15 minutes. As Professor have given a very high micro level speech, I think I would like to try to share with you from my personal perspective in terms of China's narrative is changing. Because what we do in the financial market, we talk about narrative. It might sound very abstract. However, I think it really has a profound impact on the market. So let's look at how the narrative has changed in China. So if we can look back at the market performance in China, this couple of months has been actually doing quite good. But the last quarter, last year, China was facing a lot of pressure. If you talk to the investors and the business entrepreneurs in China, they are actually quite pessimistic. However, after a good stimulus packages, wave of stimulus has happened in the end of 2024. China's economy has seen some resilient growth, and it has actually reached its 5% growth goal. What is the main driving force for that GDP growth? Is actually the outside demand. So that is the foreign demand actually accounts for has a very important, that has contributed over 30% to GDP growth, which is the highest since 1997. So whether there's a sluggish domestic consumption has fueled the debates about whether China can escape the middle income trap, especially after its GDP per capita stagnate around from 2021 to 2023. However, we've seen a big challenge last year. I want to share with you a very interesting figure is that can China escape this middle income trap? It's not just China. Every new emerging economies are facing the same question. Most of the countries can't escape that trap. If you look at our neighbor, Malaysia, they have been stuck in this trap for a very long time. And from 2021 to 2023, that China experienced a similar situation. We analyzed the GDP per capita. It was stuck around $12,600 for 3 years. So a lot of people are saying, is China is stuck in the middle income trap. However, last year they had a very interesting development. The total GDP reached about 135 trillion RMB in 2024. So it depends on what currency that you use. But if you calculate the GDP per capita, is around 13,500 USD. So this marks a significant milestone. And the reason for that is related to the technological development. I think technology could be the very important means for China to escape from this middle income trap. And that brings us to the manufacturing technological advancement in China. That is the main driving force. And in the past couple of months, we also heard news about the technological breakthroughs, including DeepSeek, including the 6 generations of models, the technological developments. We've never actually seen the past 30 to 40 years, but it took China 30 to 40 years to develop these technologies. A lot of these initiatives were started in the 1970s and 1980s. So you can have a look online about these, to search these keywords. What does it mean by 863 or 973? This is actually the month and year of that technological initiative, when it started. So the first quarter of the economic development is actually quite good in this year. If you look at the chart here on the left hand, it says the high-tech manufacturing output in China. And it's showing a quite positive sign. On the right-hand side, it shows the investment. Investment mostly include manufacturing investment, infrastructure, and property, real estate. And now the green line, which is the property line, is still decreasing. So that's unfortunate. In January and February, they have dropped by about 6%. Respectively. So, but manufacturing investment, it is still a very strong driving factor. So that brings us to the trade war 2.0, was China's response to Trump 2.0. At the beginning, China is sitting at the backstage. They are still observing. However, we're seeing that China has received more tariffs, 10% and 25% and so on. So I think this will actually give China and U.S. more ground and more room for negotiation. And next week, the MOFCOM of China's Commerce Ministry will have a talk with Walmart in China because they want to reduce the price. They want to cut the demand. So China is making a reaction, and they want to talk with Walmart and to talk about the price cuts. But the profit is actually quite low already in this business. So I think it's very rare for Chinese businesses to actually give up interest. So maybe by adding the 20% tariffs, there will be a bigger price change. I think this will also impact the consumers or the market itself in the U.S. will have to pay close attention into the inflation issues in America as well. So this figure shows the China's reaction to trade war. If you heard my talk last November, I said President Trump's games are very different. In his first term, it was mostly relied on his willingness to start a trade war. But this time around, it depends on its capability to start a trade war.
So what's 2.0 entails? Basically, 2.0 is for China to fight with America, but to lower its ability, not so much to lower its willingness. So when we look at these two countries, China's strategists, they know that the most important thing is to be able to lower the ability of America in this trade battle. And this ability, how do we lower the ability? They realize that what's the pain point for the America economy? And one is inflation. So China knows that if you add tariffs to my products, then I'm going to pinch your pain point. I'm going to add tariffs to the part of the products that is the most critical to your inflation, that we will export to your U.S. market, but that's the most critical to your inflation. So this gambling, it has a very important point, and that is also the exchange rate. At the time, it was 8 RMB, sorry, 1 US dollar 8 RMB, and it has been in that level for quite some time. I remember when Trump first resumed office in last November, he has such a bold ambition, and he came out with so many tariff war, trade war, and one thing is to also devalue in the RMB for China. But I think the RMB's value, basically RMB's value is it's a supplement for the consumers outside of China. So if you want to gamble, basically if you lower that subsidies to the consumers outside China, overseas consumers, it's going to work. So of course, it doesn't mean that it doesn't have some pressure. It does have downward pressure, but at the moment it's still able to withhold that headwinds because with the policy of China, it still is withholding that pressure. So if you compare 1.0 to 2.0, you can see that in the Trump 2.0, you are really competing with the real strength. And what's the difference between 1.0? First, America has very serious, very stringent inflation problem. Also, America's fiscal deficit is very worrisome. And when it comes to 2.0, the backbone, the health itself is not as sound as the first wave. And also, it's the high trade deficit. And this is their problem. So they're using the bullet to almost hit themselves. So this is something that we are trying for the Chinese government. They're not as worried because they know that the situation is not exactly to only bad for China. And also another thing is Japanese yen. Japan has 30 years of lost economy. So with America's bold strategy of executing 2.0, we can see that a lot of other countries are also suffering. So that's why I keep saying that there is a strategy called 333. What is a 333? The first three is to increase America's economy to 3% by 2030, and also to lower the fiscal deficit by 3%. And also, they every day they are producing 3 million crude oil, and then they also have this they call the Plaza. Malago Accord, and this is also something that we've been recently widely heard, and this is basically the code. Before we thought it was a code that Trump is using, but I think this is also a strategy that's part of the 333. So basically, this is something that at the moment we don't see very major risks. And then we also don't think it's going to be very detrimental to the Chinese economy. But we're still watching the RMBs against US dollar, the exchange rate, and I think that there will be some adjustment correction period. So I'd like to go back to a topic that was mentioned by Dr. Chen just now. Let's go back to the time when we first had electricity. Of course, in the 19th centuries, when the electricity was first invented, actually the inventor didn't make the money. Who made the money at the end? It was the manufacturing of the electricity, and also a lot of middlemen later made the money. Then that's why we now have a lot of nightlife. And all this becomes we are able to monetize it because of the old and ancestors' invention, but actually they didn't make the money. So if we imply that to our AI story, the AI narratives, you can see that the applying things for AI is very, very wide, and this is why all the Western countries are very closely looking at the AI development in China, even with like, for example, just now we see a lot of like Hansen technology. A lot of investors are watching them so closely because they know that it's a very big potential of growth. And also we also talk about in 2021 at the time. A lot of people say that this is not. They're still a bit uncertain about whether they should whether they should put the investment in the Chinese company. But with the 2022, with the Europe war erupted, and you can see the new order now. It was then reestablished, and from 2021 to 2024, a lot of geopolitics are making big changes, and also in September, we can see that China also doubled down its investment on certain policies, and also for the overseas investors' perspective, they are seeing potential. That's why in a very short period of time, from not willing to invest to willing to even want to invest, you can see the mentality changes. So a lot of people may say that, with all this unknown policy, we don't know if we should invest in China. But I think this is a very interesting, very intriguing way of changes. When the narrative changes, it's not a short-term behavior. It's not 1 month or 2 months. I think for people who observe China for months, even many years, they will see the interesting potential in it. Sorry, my time is very limited, so I can only touch upon a little on each concept. But here I think I will not touch too much about the 2 sessions. But I want to highlight 2 points. One point is about the real estate. In these 2 sessions, I have one big observation. One is on the real estate. In the past, when we look at China's economy downturn, we always try to analyze the root cause of it. And of course, there are a lot of debate, but we try to find out what's the majority of the cost for that downward adjustment. A lot of people say it's China-U.S. trade conflict. Some people say that it's oversupply of productivity. But I think this year, the leaders in China, they are forming a type of consensus, and they know that the reason why the downward trending, the deeper reason is the real estate market, and that's why they are doing the in-depth adjustment. So if you are able to recognize this, then you know that you cannot just easily invest in properties, and you know that you cannot just look at stability for 2 months and do a quick investment. At the time, I remember at the time in Guangdong, at that time the government released 30 billion RMB of subsidies to help some of the realtors and also some of the investors, and also to buy back some houses that are not able to be sold. So I think this in this area the government has really put on more strength, and to provide a more level playing field, to create a more balanced and a more healthy balance between the need, and demand and the supply. And so that is the first thing I observed. Another thing is the readjustment of the balance, the scale of the balance for the Chinese economy. And this is something that I can probably give a bit of more insight. I think they talk about how to increase how to stoking the fires of domestic demand again, and they do from 4 perspectives. First is to increase income, and or incoming they call that. And then they understand that how do you allow your citizens to have good life? Well, first of all, you have to increase their salary, to increase their income. So this is to increase the assets. This is one thing that they know that's important to pursue, because with that income increment or income increase, they are able to have better consumption power. And so this is called some real estate. Real asset income is something very important. The second part is housing consumption, and the third is some consumption related to automobiles, and the last is consumption related to services. So I think with these 4 pillars, they are able to, China is aiming to improve the domestic demand and the consumptions. And I think if you know some of the backdrop, you should be able to put one with another strategies. Today's lunch, I had it with a friend who works in the automobile financing company, and then he told me that now in the market, the used car, second-hand car, is booming, because this is not only good for the financing or car finance industry, it's also good for the overall automobile development. So I'll just stop here. If you have any questions later, we can discuss more through our Q&A. Okay, thank you very much. Later, we are going to leave some Q&A time for us to discuss further. Next speaker will be Associate Professors of International Studies of Rajaratnam School of International Studies, Dr. Li from Nanyang Technologies University. Dr. Li Ming. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Very pleased to have this opportunity to have these exchanges with you, especially after the 2 sessions. Let's talk about how we can respond to Trump 2.0 from China's perspective. And this is today is a very rainy day. I thought half of the site will be empty, but it's actually full. I'm very touched. I don't know if everybody comes here for the 2 sessions or for Trump. I think more people are more interested in Trump's policies because he's a very unusual politician. every day he can create a lot of interesting scenes for all of us, for the netizens, including his name. I remember when he first presided office, his name was translated into Chinese in many ways, and some are very interesting. We have, Trump in Chinese we call 川普, or in Chinese we call 特朗普, or even 川建国. All these different ways of translating his name. Some are given different meanings. Some are translated literally. So now I'd like to share with you some of the documents after the 2 sessions, and some of the main policies, and how those information will, how this information reflect China's diplomatic relations and some of the trends. I think I can go from 4 perspectives. From the 2 sessions information, how we can decode China's policy from its own perspective. So, and also how Chinese government and Chinese leaders evaluate their own results in 2024, and what are the main things they did for the people and for the country. The third perspective is from a macro perspective, to see how China link its own domestic social economic development to overseas and international markets development, and how they correlate each other. The fourth trend is to see when 2025's major China's diplomatic policies and the main trends.
So I can start by sharing some conclusions, actually. So the first conclusion I would like to make is from if we look at the 2 sessions, how does the Chinese leadership look at the outside geopolitical environment? We have actually enough information to observe China, that its external pressure that China is facing. Do they have a more positive or more negative estimation? I think by looking at the report itself, I think the overall sentiment is not very positive. And the second conclusion, if I can make, is its self-evaluation in its diplomacy. I think, of course, they will have more positive more positive estimate on their diplomacy. Of course, that's understandable because most people will evaluate themselves on a positive note. And the third conclusion or the remark that I can make is, how does China view its own development in terms of on the global stage? Of course, the 2 speakers before me, they have touched upon their opinions on some of the notes that I just shared. If we analyze the challenges that China is facing in terms of globalization and supply chain and the protectionism and the transition into a more internal or inward policy change. But the message that we can get from the 2 sessions and its report is, China thinks it's more reliant on the global stage. They are even increasing that dependency on the global market. The final point I would like to make is in the next few years, the direction of the foreign policy that we'll take. I think China will continue to support the current global order. And secondly, China will pay more attention in the global South countries. And thirdly, China will further its effort into strengthening its relations with its neighboring countries. So now we can dive into details. First of all, the judgment that China made about the whole international development or the global development trend, I think it's more pessimistic. If you look at the working government work report, it says China is facing more external pressures and is affecting the China market more profoundly. It has deepened, more complicated, more severe impact. This will impact the trade and technological development in China. Premier Li Jiang also touched upon the increasing trend of unilateralism and protectionism in terms of world economic and the lack of economic growth driver. From the economic level, China holds a more negative view towards its outlook. And Foreign Minister Wang Yi also said in his report that the world economy or the global order is facing with a lot of challenges. So with these details, with these policies, the messages that we can see from the report, it cannot really entirely reflect on China's view towards the outside world. In the scholar discussions, that we feel that the Trump 2.0 actually gives China an advantage. For example, Donald Trump doesn't really talk about values or ideologies per se. It doesn't really value the allies. So this actually gives China a more strategic opportunity that China has not seen in the past few years. And of course, to be more specific, that we can discuss into, we can touch upon more details in the Q&A sessions. But back to my second point is, how does China evaluate its own diplomatic policies in 2024? If you look at last year's China's diplomatic policies, it has continued its post-pandemic policy. So this diplomatic policy of wolf warriors are long gone. China is trying to change and to strengthen its relationship with its neighboring countries, and they try to play a more important role in the global affairs. My third point, I want to discuss in more details, because I think this will help us to understand how China is involving itself in the global affairs. As I mentioned earlier, China is actually, because it is facing a lot of pressure from its domestic demand. It needs to complete its structural reform. However, it's not easy, but it cannot slow down its economy or slow down its spirit. So they have high hopes or high expectations in terms of the global market support. They have to actively to explore export growth point and to continue to optimize their export structure. Like what the report has said, they have to expand the trade negative list, and they have to further open up their unilateral openness level, and to expand on the list of countries for visa exemption and so on. So how to attract foreign investment, foreign trade, and also to continue to expand their development of the free trade zones, and to sign the 3.0 version of the China-ASEAN free trade zone, and so on, as well as to promote China to enter the digital economic partnership agreement, and so on, as well as the CPPCC agreements. And the foreign minister also said China's diplomatic policy will continue to provide support, strategic support for China to serve the modern economy and to build a more favorable external environment for China. So from all of these expressions that we can see that China is actually quite focusing on the external economic support from outside China. During the two sessions, we've also seen that the government put development at the focal point. Means why do they emphasizing on the global development or the foreign relations development? Of course, that benefits its domestic economy. If they can help their neighboring countries to develop, that's also good news for Chinese economies and Chinese entrepreneurs, because that will give them more international trade and investment opportunities. And go back to the fourth point that I said earlier. In the next couple of years, what will be the focusing point for Chinese diplomatic policies? Because President Trump is disrupting some of the current global order, and China, of course, has realized that it needs a safeguard, like someone who can maintain the current world order. It needs a power that can do that. They can help China to do that. Whether it's a multilateral mechanisms to function normally, we've seen a lot of informations as well. But what I want to point out is these global South countries are playing more and more important role in China's diplomatic strategies. Also, as mentioned in Foreign Minister Wang Yi's report during the two sessions, he said a lot of the development in 2024, how China initiated the diplomatic organization, the conferences between China and the Arab world, and the Beijing conference and the China-Africa cooperation conferences and so on. So if I can quote their government report, looking at the future, we have to make the world more steady. The global South is the key. He also calls that the global South should be united. It also said in 2025, China will host the Shanghai Cooperation Conference. As well as cooperations between China and Latin America, the fourth ministerial level conferences. In terms of China and U.S. relations, the two sessions also sent out some messages that will also shed some light on how China views China and U.S. relationships, especially they are holding a more a strong view, a strong position. But the government is also trying to be more cautious to stabilize the China-U.S. relations. The reason we said that is, again, from the Foreign Minister Wang Yi's report. He said China never starts anything, but we're not afraid of anything. Any pressure or any threats will not work on China. So that's a strong position that China is showing. Wang Yi also criticized U.S. by saying it's a two-faced policy. It's pressuring China. It's on the other hand, they're calling to have a positive relationship with China. He also touched upon the issue of fentanyls. He said China has provided a lot of support to the U.S. and for the issue of fentanyls, U.S. cannot retaliate by posing more retaliating tariffs on fentanyls. But he also said they have to build a more steady and healthy and continuing relations between the two countries. we have also seen some message about China and Japan relations. It has to be a more constructive and healthy and steady relations. And China's relations with the Southeast Asia also mentioned during Wang Yi's report. We need more negotiation and coordination. And he's confident that this year we'll see more progress in this regard. And for China and India, the government wants to continue a relations with India in a more healthy and steady way. So these are the key takeaways that we can get from 2 sessions work report. So that's what I want to share with you as well. So during the Q&A session, of course, I'm open to more questions. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Li.
Okay, so the next part of our seminar today is to go into the conversation session. And I'm sure we all now have a deeper understanding of our geopolitics situation. And once again, thank you for attending our Decoding 2-session meeting. And we have already conducted this type of conference for 5 years from 2020. And I hope you all can stay to attend our engaging sessions of this area of this time. It's a Q&A time, and I hope also you can raise some interesting questions for our guest speakers to reply. Please give us a few minutes. We are going to set up the stage, and then we will invite our guest speakers to come up on the stage again. First of all, I'd like to invite our host, Ms. Han Yonghong from Lianhe Zaobao, Deputy Chief Editor. And then we also would like to invite Mr. Eric Xu from Jiyuan Capital. He's the MD of Jiyuan Capital. Also, Xie from OCBC, Bank Asia Research and Strategy Head. And also Dr. Ming Jiang from Nanyang Technology University School of International Studies. Okay, also Professor Chen. Thank you for the introductions. A lot of our fellow friends here, they may not be foreign to our decoding sessions, and also we have a lot of readers from Lianhe Zaobao. I'm very happy that you take time from your busy schedule in a rainy day in March to come to discuss with us about the 2 sessions. And we have already had this type of meeting for 5 years, and this year is we have the strongest guest speakers, and we have 2 from academic circle, Professor Professor Chen, also Professor Zeng Guangyan, and also we have 2 representatives from the industries, from the professional industry, so we can see the policies and also our industry changes from micro and from macro perspectives, and to understand the economic situation of China. And also we can see how it relates to the international situation at the moment. So I'd like to first raise a question to Jiyuan Capital, Mr. Xu. Just now we talked about a lot of the situation of the economic situation in China. So I just want to ask you, what do you feel in 2025, February, March? Is it a good time to invest? And what do you think about, how do you interpret the market comparing to the market before? Thank you. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Actually, I do venture capital in China for about 20 years. I also experienced the highest growth in China for a long time. So maybe I could give a very in-depth insight about it. First of all, from this year, the beginning of the year, I think the government, Chinese government, has put its focus on the economic development once again. And we also can see the proof from a lot of policies it executed in the society level. And a lot of money is injected in to revigorate the economy. So actually in China, the biggest investor is the Chinese government. For example, the Beijing, Shanghai, Hangzhou government. They have their own endorsed AI enterprises and also robotics enterprises. So from this point of view, you can see that they are willing to give that support to those local talents and local companies. Another area is now just not mentioned by the other professors is in the finance industry and also the banking industry. I think this is not only give the boost of confidence for the capital market. I think it also gives the confidence to a lot of investors outside of the circle. Actually, I have a friend from the banking industry. He called me personally, and then he asked me, "Do you think China's economy rebound or is a reverse turn?" So actually, even they are paying special attention to it. So in the past few years, I can see that a lot of things were meeting hurdles, and but then I think in the long term. I think this still has a lot of potential. So for level 2 and above investors will have a reasonable growth to be expected. So do you think it's a reverse turn or it's a rebound? I think actually you're more as an expert, you're more of an expert than me. I think from the fundamentals, it takes time. But if we talk about the narratives, I think today's changes is quite dramatic. It's quite big. I think the overall the market in the last 2 years has become more heated, especially in the technology related businesses, and also you can see that a lot of international top technology usage of chips and technology usage they're happening very rapidly in China. Also, I like to say that in China is always the biggest country to produce steel. So I wouldn't say it's the strongest, but definitely it's one of the strong driving force, and then actually in an application front, it's already surpassed U.S. Market. And also in 2018, 2019, we saw a lot of business models and innovations, and the digitalization of China is still going on, and China is running in the forefront of the AI race. And another one is CDC. I think a lot of people may underestimate that. The China government is always pushing the open source development. So I think this is the LLM is something that it is aggressively developing. And also we know that in the first generation, a lot of AI we still cannot detect or to search in voice. And now we can see the big development. And also we can see that how it uses that to leverage or to balance the power with the Western country. So in the last 2-3 years, a lot of Chinese enterprises, they are jumping into the bandwagon, jumping the trend. They not only use API to do their business models, they also do a lot of detailed development. And then the second part is, I would say, the big data. This is a very fundamental question. So if you add that on to the open source model, I think they can do almost everything. And the only challenges is how they can localize, deploy that in the local market. I think to give you a very easy example, a lot of e-commerce platforms in the past, they are not able to connect with the overseas buyers because they don't speak English. But now in the US or European market, they are able to purchase products in China because now the interface is almost interpreted or translated simultaneously. So this was something AI can resolve. And sometimes you just do a little prompt the design is out. For example, you can cut the curtains to the size you like, to the design you want. So this is slowly changing, but rapidly, fundamentally changing the way we do business and we work. Okay, thank you, Mr. Xu, for your sharing. Just now you mentioned that the fundamentals didn't change, but a lot of people are being more optimistic. So if the fundamental is not reversed or is not rebound, how can we expect this whole industry to have an overall transformation? I think a lot of things is still very much related to AI and technology. A lot of local governments, they are continuously putting in more investment. So do you have some advice that can give us, for example, some kind of a new technology that China is using, or like Himalaya FM51 credit card? All those are the early investment. Do you have some tips for us for the AI investment? Okay, I think a lot of people have been talking about this, and I think LLM is no longer a new topic, but we need to focus on its vertical application. So, for example, using SaaS as a base, as a server. If you look at the latest Google technology, you can already use AI to do Photoshop. So lately, if you observe, Adobe's stock price has gone down a lot, and if you do look at ServiceNow, it's also going in the downward. Why? Because all those companies, it was their bread and butter. So if they don't do a good job, they don't have inventive products, sorry, within 3 years, you're out. So that's why Google and Facebook, they are very aggressively purchasing those new startups or very promising companies. So if you look at their physical reports, you can see that they do a lot of investment in AI potential companies, because Google knows that if they don't do that, there's no future for them. So they put more than $1 billion every year into those small companies. For example, Xiaohongshu, the Red Book, now is very, very popular and then being watched by many, many companies. We can see that when they do the deployment of their strategies and their data or information gathering, they are very aware of this development. So if you look at the context of the operation, to some of the companies in the West, why are those companies interesting? Because those companies they are able to come out and they are able to stop or terminate the monopolized situation. And a lot of people know the success stories of NVIDIA or IPSec, and you see that in the very short time, once there's another player coming out to break the monopoly, it's going to gain a lot of support and awareness. So everybody is trying to see that killer's app. When would that come out? So they also know that every country needs to use AI. That's why they're putting a lot of trillions of money into in AI development. And if you look at the semiconductor and the new technology manufacturing, I think this is also something that China has an edge. A lot of people, for example, in the past 20 years, they try to invest in the GPU or in the semiconductor, including in the companies in Taiwan. But the success story was very, very limited. But now, why would they all want to come back again to invest in this? Because today's world has changed. You have to know that without that, you're not able to succeed. So a lot of people say, isolism. A lot of people talking about functioning alone, functioning solo. But this is not. I think we need to have two systems. One is good for the West, and one is good for the East. For example, good for China. And also, we can see that there's a third factor that's robotics. Robots. Robots is also a very important area. A lot of companies, they are trying to use this technology, to use robots to do very high level, high profile controlling of maneuvering or operation. A lot of companies also invented their own robotics, and of course, many big American companies, and a lot of Chinese companies are doing that. We can see that a lot of robots can do a lot of things. For example, in China, there's the robots can do a lot of imitated human motions. They come even including to run, to flip, and to kick soccer. So I think in the robotics development, the gap between US and the US is very, very small. And to the US, the biggest challenge is M8 chips. And this is a big task they need to overcome. And I don't know if it's going to be 10 years boom in West and 10 years boom in Asia, but I do believe that whoever can grasp that big breakthrough of the chip, who then will be able to occupy the top positions. And I think there's a big opportunities. And we can give you another example, BYD. BYD in the past, it's just they have an autopilot i3 technology. Maybe at the time it cannot compete with Tesla, but at least it's balancing Tesla's power. And also, recently it has a new autopilot. Oh, this is very amazing. They can charge within 10 minutes and it can run for 400 kilometers. And this is already no difference between traditional bus fuel cars. And this is one breakthrough that BYD has done in the past.
Another new breakthrough I want to mention is on the consumer front. So with the AI's help, that there are a lot of 3C products, for example, the auto translation headphones or the Oculus wearables, glasses that you can wear. So there are also some wearables that can help children to socialize with other people or to play chess with with partners from other countries, that you can use these wearable devices. Some of these devices are very interesting. However, maybe some of them are not very high quality, but I'm very happy to announce that I can see that a lot of these companies are making $100,000 of US dollars. So they have 40% profit margin. So that means this innovation has a very big potential in China. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Xu, for touching about on the robotics, AI, CPU chips, and robotics, as you mentioned. So there is a very favorable environment in China. And speaking of robotics, I have next to me who's from the one of the 6 little dragon tech companies in Hangzhou in China. DeepSeek is one of those 6 dragons. So, and this gentleman sitting next to me is from Deep Robotics, Mr. Cheng Yuhan. He's from Deep Robotics. So my question to you is about the robotics development in China. We can see some robots can play soccer, and they can play gymnastics. And how do you train these models? And it seems to us that all these technologies just came up in one night. But how do you actually develop these technologies? Thank you very much, Ms. Han. So actually, the development of robots, of course, relies on the development of AI, artificial intelligence. That the traditional model that we used were actually not as flexible. Now we can see the robots can do many more things than this. They can play Tai Chi, they can play soccer, they can play sports, and so on. We are using AI algorithms to train these models, but it's less hard to train these robots, but the productivity or the outcome actually grow exponentially. that's why you can see much wider adoptions of the AI use, and that can also drive the cost down in the technological front in China. And for us at Deep Robotics, actually, we can domestically produce our products by 95%. We can 100% produce domestically. You also said the so-called six little dragon tech companies in Hangzhou. Actually, the Hangzhou government has spent so much in the past 2 decades to support these tech companies. I remember when my company only had 30 people, and there were thousands and tens of thousands of companies like us in Hangzhou. Maybe we did something that was unique, and one of the officials that noticed our development, and they gave us a much bigger platform for us to develop and to learn more advanced and more mature business models. So we're very grateful of that government support from the local government. Without that support, I think a lot of companies just won't succeed. And because the AI development is such a hot topic right now, so we're lucky to have captured that opportunity. Tens of thousands of companies, only 6 companies have succeeded in Hangzhou. And many people from the global market might say these new productive forces or these new technologies, can they actually drive the economy to develop? Because without the technologies, the economy is still going up. But with these new forces or new productive forces, the economic fundamentals are still not looking that positive. So we can imagine the large-scale adoption or the potential of the use of AI. But in reality, can we see the development of a technology translate into economic development, to translate to GDP growth? Thank you for the question. If you look at the tech companies or the so-called new productive forces in China, can we drive the economy to grow in the short term? That's unrealistic. And the tech companies only possess as a small percentage of the whole economy. But what we feel lucky is that the government is paying more attention to us, and it's paying more focus on the AI development, especially robotics. Our output, like the shipment, might be not even like a fracture of the EV companies, the automobiles. However, the adoption of this technology, of the robotics, could be much, much bigger. Like someone mentioned earlier, if you can use the robotics in your household, it becomes a appliance, then the market, the scale, could be millions or trillions. By that time, of course, it can drive the economy to go up. So you can imagine us as the junior student, that although we're doing quite good in our grade, but we're not at university level yet. We're still growing. So right now, well, we can see that we have started from 0 to 1. And the next thing that we need to do is to find more breakthroughs in the industrial use of these technologies and to replicate these models into different industries and then to realize large-scale development. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So the confidence that we have in technology lies in the future. The limit of this, or we can't even imagine what's the limit. So thank you, Hank, for sharing with us your thoughts. I know that you also brought with you a quadruped, a robot dog. You can also have a look outside of this conference room. And they come in different sizes. We don't really have a stage for the robot dogs to perform, but it actually can perform a lot of tasks. They can shake your hands. It can go up and down the stairs. So I know you are also cooperating with the Singaporean companies, but as you said, it's not at a large scale, wide usage yet. So my question will go to the other three panels, but however, we have a very limited time, so we'll just have limited time for a few questions. And Professor Tan will have to leave at 5:30 on the dot, so let's gather some questions quickly. So my question next is going back to China's response on Trump 2.0. A more general question is, with Donald Trump, he has many unexpected policies since he took office again. In general, overall speaking, do you think he possesses a challenge or an opportunity to China? And on the China side, is China ready for this new challenge or opportunity, especially on the opportunity front? So I want to pose that question to Professor Tan first before you leave, and of course other panelists are welcome to join. So opportunity and challenges, I think they coexist. From the opportunity front, because Trump doesn't like war, so that will put less pressure on China. If you see any conflicts across the straits, a Taiwan issue is just a beginning. If Trump doesn't like war, then that will have much less pressure on China. I think that's an opportunity. Another opportunity I can see is also what I talked about in my presentation is in the renewable energy resources, China has more opportunities because if you look at Britain and Europe, they're also seeking opportunities to work with China in the new energy front. There are potentials there. Of course, there are many challenges as well. The challenge on tariff is quite big. I've been to China 7 times actually in the past year or so, and I talked with many Chinese entrepreneurs, and they are quite worried about the tariff impact. From the small and macro business enterprises level, of course, the businesses are facing a lot of pressure. We can see an increase in China's export. If you analyze the figures, there's about 70% of the export is from China. Private business, and then 20% are from the foreign enterprises in China. And then only 5 to 6% of the export contribution are from the China SOE companies. So that's why the small business owners are quite concerned about the tariffs. And now with the 10% and then another 10% increase will put a big pressure on these SMEs. And of course, the SMEs have a big say in terms of employment. So in that front, we see more challenges. So for Dr. Li, the same question goes to you. What I think is in the short run, the challenge that Trump has is more than the opportunity. But in the long run, it goes the other way. So as Professor Tan shared, the trade war will put more pressure on China. You can also look at the impact on employment during a trade war. The manufacturing business will have to transfer their capabilities, production capabilities to other countries like Southeast Asia, and that will put more pressure on China's traditional companies. And we can see the unemployment issue is actually quite severe in China. 50% of the university graduates cannot find a good job, and there are many people who are aged over 35 find it difficult to find new jobs. So this pressure will reflect on the income, on the social stability, and as well as consumption. So let alone the impact on the local government debt and local government income. So I also agree that China has accumulated its advantages in education, in local policy, government policies, and so on. Nevertheless, I feel it will take some time to test these leverages because U.S. is just started its pressure on pressing down the technological development in China. So can China really leverage their tech advantage and to find a opportunity, to find a loophole in the tech front? For example, the development, the breakthrough of DeepSeek, it actually went past some loopholes. In the long run, the pressure that U.S. is posing on China's technological development, they're trying to fix those loopholes. They're trying to put more strict rules on the technological companies. For example, the open sources and the chips that the DeepSeek company is using, they're trying to fix the loopholes in that front. So we are only seeing the start of that competition.
And this is we haven't seen the most fierce competition comes. By then, we can then see how big the influence is China's technology. How big the influence is for the Chinese technology cast on the international trade. And let's talk about AI. If we want to surpass the technology level of for AI, I think definitely can increase the nation's economic development because it will then help the efficiency. But at the same time, you also know that it may also cause a lot of labor to lose their job. This can be seen as the fourth industrial revolution, and this is it's a core problem, a double-edged sword. Because at the same time, it will not need so much labor. A lot of people will lose their jobs. So if you look at the world, how many countries actually are ready for that? Also, how many public policies are able to give that support once those laborers lose their jobs? Do we have a sound welfare, or do we have a sound social security for those laborers? And I think many more countries will have to face this eventually. And of course, this is an inevitable trend. We have to embrace it, but we also have to be ready for the negative impact of that. You may say that, okay, we have social security, we have social insurance, but this is also need to be supported by national policies, political policies. And a lot of countries, their national securities or their social security, social welfare are still falling way behind. And we also seen that in the last few years, a lot of people are talking about autonomous driving, but a lot of people, they don't even have the development of the streets. A lot of cities, they don't have the deal. So that's why in many places it cannot be promoted. So maybe we also have to think about in the next 20, 30 years, what do you do with this infrastructure or the supporting mechanism? And a lot of drivers will lose their job. And for all those people, they drive their whole entire life, or they're low-skill drivers. How do they support their family? And so I think all these are you have to have that policies to catch up. You have to also know that how you can have that supporting mechanism or the society net to catch all these people who fall down from the trend. And it becomes a big pressure for a lot of companies, and also to test how they can adapt to this new trend. And so I think this is something we need to look at. If Trump is, if Trump operates his country with Trumpism, Trump theories. Okay, if this is his own country, but I think very soon after his second term, we can see how people evaluate him. From the geopolitical perspective, I would say the weaknesses outweigh the strength. Of course, from his political perspective, he may gain some fame or may gain some support. So this is still, we need to wait and see. And also, we can see that for China, that's diplomatic scene, it has a lot of burdens. And of course, the situation with the U.S. and also with the U.S., he wants to become more protectionism country. And I think in the next 10 years, we'll see how China is going to prioritize its policies. Okay, thank you very much. Just now, we also talk about multifaceted problems. Just now, you mentioned that China's relationship with Europe, Japan, and also Southeast Asia is very important, and so on and so forth. But I want to know that what kind of long-term strategy and short-term strategy you will promote. This year, they announced a 5% growth. Do you think how likely you will achieve this target, and what kind of situation you will face? Is the challenge big? Would that become an impediment for China to achieve? Okay, before I answer your question, I think I'm pondering on some data. To China, the U.S.-China trade war started from the second half of 2017. So this is not something new already. But after 2018, we gathered some interesting data. And it says that China's trade is actually taking account more upward percentage in the world trade. The second thing is that the China's products, it's riding on a surplus trend, and probably the highest in the record, almost $500 billion. So this is pretty big news because the trade surplus is $500 billion. After so many years of trade war, if you look at the situation, even with a lot of people thinking that China is taking a very strong position, you can see that this is the inevitable truth. So of course we can see we have to also analyze the situation. It's not an absolute concept. 抱歉，他的声音有点断掉了。So what do we? Sorry, we had some interruption in the microphone, and so now let's look at the trade. And I think after that, they also have the situation for other Chinese products. But if you look at it, the new trade tariff policies to China is 10%. To other countries, some are 20%. It's like giving a protection fee. So basically, if to some industries, maybe the impact is not that big, especially if you're not at the brunt of it. So some industry may think that okay, we just pay some protection fee to secure us a spot to do the trade business with the state. And so actually from the situation, I do not look at it negatively, because Trump does not just do this to China. He's doing this to the world. And if you look at the concept, so to answer your question, if you look at economic situations, I still think the challenge is quite big. I think we will only see the tariff result after 2 or 3 months. After the wave of 10%, we will see. But I think at the moment, I'm still quite optimistic because the RMB is not devalued. And we also don't see a major damage like what the netizen was talking about online. And people say that, our export will decrease. But I think from our experience from 2018, we can probably do a modeling of data forecast. I don't think it's going to be that big of impact. Maybe in between 1.7 to 2.5%. If they increase 10%, the drop will be only 1.7 to 2.5%. If you drop another 10%, if they impose another 10%, I think maybe if they continue doing that, of course there'll be some negative impact. But at the moment, I think we can just wait and see. I do feel that we have quite a big leverage or quite a bit of bargaining chips in hands. So we will have to. It's very hard to analyze it step by step at the moment. We can only see one step at a time. So now we have about 20 over minutes. We will open the floor for all the participants to ask questions, and you can use the microphone we placed at the walkway in between, or you can raise your hand and our on-site staff will pass the microphone to you. So I can see the second last row. Thank you, Professor Chen. This question to Professor Chen and Mr. Xie. Just now you talk about the Mar-a-Lago Accord 2.0. I think I'd like to know a little bit more because do you think America will then negotiate with China to increase the value of the RMB, strengthen RMB, so that in exchange of the tariff policies? Do you think is it possible? Thank you for your question. It's actually really hard to say, but what we're seeing in the market now, I think they're talking a little bit deeper than just exchange rate, because exchange rate maybe will force you to change the U.S. debt into a longer term, like 100 years or even longer. But at the moment, there are many versions, and we are not quite sure. But we cannot underestimate the risks. My personal feeling is that it will not be lower than 50% because it's hard to execute. It still has to satisfy many terms. Comparing to 1985, I think at the time, U.S. of course was the leading, big leader in the world. And at the time, President Reagan, basically, whatever he says holds the truth. And at the moment, Trump is not as respected, and his image is not as good as President Ronald Reagan. So I'm not quite sure if he will be in the same situation. Also, I can see that the European countries, they're not as supportive to Trump as in the past to the U.S. president. So I think it's less than 50% the possibilities. But of course, you cannot ignore that because in the long term, I still quite leaning towards using the U.S. dollars. I think it is my long vision to see that it will impose some pressure to RMB, to devaluate RMB. Because what he wants to do is to relocate the manufacturing market or business to the U.S. And with U.S. dollar at the current situation, it's very hard to realize. And also, U.S. market has no competitiveness, so they want to take those back to the States. He has a lot of thinking behind, and I think this is something that he is planning at the moment. He needs to find a way to serve the interests of the U.S. Of course, if I'm the U.S. president, I cannot even say that I would support to devaluate U.S. dollar because it has a deeper implications. So Trump can say that he can say he's supporting strong U.S. dollar, but in the structure term, I think it is to the America's benefit interest if they weaken the U.S. dollars. From China's perspective, if I said China RMB is going to the exchange rate of RMB is going to revitalize the tariff discussion, I would think that it is not impossible. But again, exchange rate is very hard to predict because it has its own soul. So you will have to kind of see the overall situations. But the possibility is less than 50%, I would say. Okay. I remember when I was in the government section. When I was working in the government section, I went to Japan for a visit, and at the time, I remember the fiscal officer in Japan told me that in the 33 years, Japanese yen has increased 100 basis points, and because it's an export-oriented economy, they need that to stimulate the economy. So they did a lot of maneuvers. At the end, they created a bubble, and the stock market also is a bubble, and it has collapsed for so many years. So I would say that because Japan is not a single country with its very isolated capital, it is very much intertwined with other countries. And also, America has nuclear weapons. The U.S. government is different. It's not like Japan that will just withhold a lot of stress, pressure, and doesn't retaliate.
So that's my personal opinion. Thank you. But China can make its own decisions, like maybe by increasing the RMB value, it could be benefit China. Okay, thank you again, Professor Tan. I know that you have to leave early today for other engagement. So we'll have a question from Mr. Chen from the audience. Hi, my name is Chen Gang from Asia Institute. So my question is about promote the private business economic law or economy law. So before the two sessions, people had this discussion that there will be there will be a law passed to protect the private economy. Do you know if there is anything happened behind the scene? And another question is related to the private sector development. For example, Li Jiacheng from Hong Kong, he had to sell 40 ports in 220 countries, including the two ports in Panama Canal. So the media had a very positive comment on Li Jiacheng's action. So I want to ask, do you think there's a connection between these two incidents? So the law didn't get passed to protect the private business, and the Li Jiacheng selling the ports. So what do you think of this future outlook of can this protection law, the private business protection law, can be passed in the future? And will China still be uninvestable, or are there more potentials or opportunities? And if something like what I just mentioned happen again, maybe the investment will suffer a big loss. So do you have any concerns about this future outlook, and what do you think of the future will hold? And of course, everyone would like to get an idea from all the panelists if you can. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chen, for posing that question. I think that's actually a very sensitive topic, and I know that you asked from the business perspective from Mr. Xu and Mr. Chen. What do you think of this business law? and who actually knows what's happening behind doors? Well, I think this question should be answered by Professor Tan, but he's not here. But just to echo on the point that the professor has mentioned, there are a lot of factors that deciding the economy, including the stock prices. It's impacted by the fundamentals, by the macroeconomics. So today, I really just try to focus on the technological front. I can't really answer your question, I'm afraid, because it's not something that I study. But what I want to share is from a more macro perspective, that beyond politics and economic mechanisms, of course, they are important, but technology is actually the leading driving force to move the economy forward. I agree with what people said, that with certain technologies, that can be seen as a restriction on some development, but I think it's a game theory, because I used to talk to a scholar that people ask the question, how come President Trump got elected? It could be from the social level, which means it's about mobility. If you look at this industry in the past 20 or 15 years, your voice is not heard, or people don't really agree with what you're saying. But with the emergence of social media and the mobile network, people have equal opportunities to express themselves, and that has changed the organization format fundamentally. Then people like me, they will feel like, oh, maybe my opinion is not that strange. Maybe I also can represent a group of people. It could be even a mainstream idea. So people do discuss how come President Trump got elected. Are there more populism happening in the U.S.? But I think the nature is still driven by technology. I can only answer from this perspective. Actually, I don't quite understand the question being asked, but because you received a lot of support from the Hangzhou government. Yes, of course, because Hangzhou government, municipal government, give us both policy support and economic support and business opportunities, and it helped us to build our company. We're kind of grow up from this greenhouse protection lab. Maybe from other countries or other regions that you ask this question, but I think I can't really complain much because we benefited from it. So just to add on that, do you think the companies, the non-tech companies in Hangzhou, are they receiving the same support from the municipal government? Just to say in Hangzhou, yes, I think so. In other sectors, like the manufacturing businesses or the more so-called the lower tier manufacturing industries, I think at least from the government efficiency level, or they are trying to cut the red tapes and trying to simplify the procedure for the companies to apply for their business license registration and so on. You can just spend a few hours to get it. I think that's still unachievable in many other parts of the world. So on the other hand, the government is also supporting business to come to Hangzhou and trying to reduce the operational cost for the private businesses. I think for the tech industries, maybe we're receiving more support, but other industries have benefited. But Alibaba is also in Hangzhou. Yes. Actually, I also want to ask Professor Tan that question. I think he left at a very good time. That only leaves me to answer this question. I can answer your second question first because it's easier. If we decode the two sessions messages, I think the best way is to have the China's SOEs to buy back these ports that Li Ka-shing has sold. If the government is so unsatisfied with Li Ka-shing, maybe then the SOEs will have to take this opportunity. They have enough assets and they have the responsibility to buy those ports. How come they're not doing that? Because the message that we are receiving is the Changhe company and the BlackRock company in the U.S., they have been negotiating in the last few months. It didn't happen in a few days. So, of course, people in the same business also kind of know what's going on. But how come no one, like any SOEs, have negotiated with Li Ka-shing and told him not to sell it to any American companies? And maybe they can offer better deals to Li Ka-shing. However, they have not done that. I think we can all think about that. And for your first question, I think it's more sensitive. I actually don't really know how come the private economy promotion law was not passed during the two sessions. I don't know the reason for that, but we can make a few conclusions. Is that in the past 4 decades, the achievements of the opening up and reform, the most of the contribution is actually from the private sector. No one can disagree with that. We also know that the SOEs have many problems and they're trying to fix those problems, but some structures and the management reasons or for political reasons, some cannot be fixed. So based on these facts, can we make an easy conclusion? Is that for the long-term development in China's economy in the future, China wants to become a developed economy, including the technological advancement. Do we have to provide more support for the private companies and less support for the SOEs? I think that's a more logical option. However, China government is actually trying to do that. But as a researcher, I think they're not doing enough, far from enough. In many aspects, they have to do more. In recent years, for the private sectors, we are seeing some transition. When the economy was good, people call these private business owners capitalists, or they are the bad guys. But when the economy is bad, people actually have to rely on these private sectors. So this on and off sentiment actually also impact the development of the private economy. But what's a positive trend is the leadership is making reflections that they have conducted on the ground research, so we can see there are reports and the policies being issued by the state council and by the regional local level. It's heading towards a positive direction, but it's far from enough. We have to analyze the fundamental reasons and to provide structural changes, including in the technological development in the past 20 years. In China, we know that private sector didn't really contribute that much, but you can see the development in Hangzhou, Shanghai, and Shenzhen in the southern cities of China. The private sectors are developing, but you might have to really think back at the root cause of many issues and to have a major adjustment, but that's not easy. if without those fundamental adjustments, then you can shift the narratives. Although the narratives have been shifted many times, but you can change again. For example, in these two sessions, they said about the two unwaverings, about the steady growth. The two unwaverings, you can change the sequence, the order of these two unwaverings. So we joke about it in China's policies that the leaders will have their names on the media, but the order of those names and whose name got put first is very important. So the narratives can be changed. If you put SOE's name at the first, that means SOE still has a bigger importance. So how do you try to convey a better message? Then you can change the message slightly. I think that's still more room to discuss. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Dr. Li. So in 2002, the 16th, the two unwaverings like to unwaveringly support the non-public sector. I think if they can actually achieve that, that means that they've heard your voice. But about the private economy promotion law, I can give you more background. So during the two sessions, actually, they said this year's task is to promote the private economy promotion law, but they didn't pass it during the two sessions. But maybe it's because it's still on the agenda in 2025, just not during the two sessions. They might have high expectations that people have high hopes for this law to be passed, but it didn't happen. But we are still hopeful for this year. But I'll have a few more minutes for just one question. One question, please.
Okay, thank you. My question, maybe I will ask Professor Ming Jiang. Just now, you talk about opportunities and challenges. In the short term, it may be a challenge, and long term, it may be opportunities. So from the opportunities perspective, I think I'm a bit more interested to talk about it further, because a lot of things are relative. In terms of opportunities, if we see the opportunities in China, obviously other countries also see this as opportunities, and other countries, other area, other regions. So I'd like to know what are the opportunities there. So for China, what are the countries that may have that consensus or collaboration opportunities with China, and also in which industry or which aspects that they may have that kind of collaboration? If it's industry or business, I think we can have our friends from the business circle like to reply. But if you go from the international politics or diplomatic perspective, then we can look at it. I think we can see that America's challenges is how to take out more resources, or I can say that they're not willing to take out resources to sustain its multilateral relationship, and or maybe to provide political support. But to China, maybe this is something that we are able to step in, because in the past we don't. Of course, in the past we were not necessarily or usually the strongest power to be looked up to, or to provide those kind of support. But it may offer us an opportunity for us to step in, to resume a stronger role in the international management or governance, or that has always been governed or led by the Western countries. So I like to give you example, when Biden was in the office, you can see that there are a lot of pressure given to technology development or Chinese enterprises, including some chips development, some new chip development, and also, but then at least Biden kept an amicable relationship with other countries. But Trump is different. Trump now, he even trying to take more money from his allies, his friends. So to China, maybe this is an opportunity. In the past few years, I think European EU and all other countries, they were facing the same situation with the U.S. There are a lot of conflicts going on, and then we're just talking about a lot of investigation on a lot of industries and tariffs, and we also see that a lot of leaders in the European countries, their support rate has been decreasing. So I think to China, whether it's from diplomatic perspective or from the international geographic political perspective, I think it may give us an angle or an opportunity for us to assume a bigger role. Another opportunity I would say is with the EV. In the last few years, I can see that there were a lot of resistance, but now with much more mature new energy, new fuel, new energy technologies, I think those products are well or better accepted. And a lot of China's investment in European countries, in the past I saw quite negative feedback, but now I think people are still started respecting Chinese companies or Chinese technologies. So I also see some opportunities there. In the last decade, China's relationship with Korea and Japan and India has become very shaky. But now with Trump being so strong and so forceful, I think also it creates some opportunities for China to build a more amicable relationship with its neighbors. And maybe with that, they will develop new economic and trade territories for China to and other countries to capitalize on. So I think this is something that we can foresee. China will not be able to de-link with Korea and Japan. So I think this is a good thing, good trend for us to see. Other professors wants to add some point? Lately, the State Department of the U.S., they removed not supporting Taiwan's independence wording away. Do you think this is just a strategy that Trump is using Taiwan just as a chip to play this game, or he's really supporting Taiwan to be independent? I think now I really miss Professor Lee, because I think he can probably talk a little bit more. I think it's in the China-U.S. relationship. I think it has been a topic, avoided topic. I don't think anyone would be so oblivious to talk about it openly, to say that, I support Taiwan's independence. I think people are still very careful and sensitive about it. This type of exchange or statement is very, very few, and it's not from the mainstream or from the official channels. So I would agree with you. Of course, he doesn't want to see the power to be off balance, or the strength to be off balance. So that's why U.S. has been supporting Taiwan to increase its military strength and to help Taiwan for the military strength, so that he can counterbalance the strength of China. But I think this is not something that they would want to see that goes off balance. They are still very clear that I think whether it's Americans or American politicians or any leaders, they love to see chaos. They like to see wars even between Taiwan and China, because I think this is almost a conspiracy. So that's why it has been supporting Taiwan or encouraging Taiwan under the table to launch any kind of military exercises. But if you look at it, that a lot of other countries or even China, I don't think they're looking forward to see war. This is a very complicated situation. I think we are not able to discuss even more details. Please allow me to add something, because we are very much interested in this topic, whether in Taiwan or in Hong Kong. We have branch office as well, so we want the business to still be prosperous. So I would say that Trump has been using Taiwan as a bargaining chip, and he uses that as a pressure or as a bargaining pressure for China to agree to what he wants. And now we're looking at when would Trump visit China. We don't see a very clear schedule yet, but it does have a possibility. Before they talk about April, now maybe May. At the moment, we don't know when China's leader and the U.S. leader will meet. But you can see that this is being in the plan. This is my personal feeling. I feel that this is just a bargaining power for Trump, and so that he can force the leaders of China to go to the negotiation table to talk to them. Thank you. Okay, sorry, our time has already exceeded our scheduled time. Once again, I'd like to thank all the professors and our two professionals from the industry to give us a lot of market insights.